Redscale film can transform with color filters like the Tiffen Green 61, but the application is really tricky. In this video I'll show you a couple ways to do it, with sometimes wondrous results. The first way to do this is with two separate exposures, one with the Green 61 on and one with it off, so a double exposure. This is easier to do on some cameras, and unfortunately with my Bronica S2, you really have to trick the camera like so.
Half a second. First exposure with the Green 61, F11, half a second. Take off, Green 61, and I'm going to trick the camera by basically advancing, and that basically just triggers the shutter without advancing the film. If the back was on it, it would trigger the shutter and advance the film. Without the Green 61, F11 at a 60th of a second.
Removing parts of the camera between the two exposures often results in some misalignment, resulting in this really trippy effect.
Here. I'm going to set the ISO back to ISO 125. Yeah, so not on the snow, but on the leaves it's an eighth of a second. Hyperfocal it again. First exposure here, F16, 1 second with the Green 61. Take off, Green 61. So I'm going to change it to 1/15th of a second without the Green 61.
Though sometimes things can align well, and the colors combine to create a look unlike a normal Redscale image.
Somewhat tucked away in some shelter here. Pretty chunky snow coming down. Almost sounds like hail, but I think it's just very chunky. First exposure here. Gonna go pretty shallow. F5.6, 1/125th. Take that off. Probably not smart thing about this. Shutter is advanced. Gonna hope it didn't move too much. All right. Green 61, 1/15th, F5.6.
In this case, I might have needed some more exposure from the Green 61. For comparison, here's a frame entirely with the Green 61 and without.
1/15th. 5.6 without the Green 61.
Shifting to a windy night, the misalignment effect can become painting-like with long exposures using the Green 61 and without on the same frame. With the long exposures at night, I realized I was making this process needlessly overcomplicated. That's because Harman Red is actually Phoenix 200, but flipped, so light is hitting the wrong side of the film. But because of that fact, and because it's Phoenix 200, that means it has the same poor reciprocity of the original film.
Without the Green 61, first exposure, 32 seconds.
Essentially, the darker an environment, the more likely there would be no recording of information unless there was way more exposure than you'd expect.
So yeah, super weird technique here. I wish I had a bigger bag. So it's basically acting as a shutter. So when I finished the first exposure without the Green 61, I brought this over the lens, covered it. Then while it was covering it, and it's also really windy, so that, pretty nerve-wracking, I tried to put the Green 61 on.
Meaning I'd have more opportunity to combine the Green 61 exposure into one continuous recording, all while the Bronica shutter is still open.
All right, first exposure without the Green 61, F8 for 4 minutes. So once I get close to about 4 minutes, I'm gonna take the dark bag that I have, cover it, acting as a shutter, while the actual shutter stays open, put on the Green 61 and do another exposure for A long time. I'll have to do the math.
The problem with nighttime in this technique is that exposures just have to be so long in order to compensate for the darkness of the green 61, and again, Harman Red has poor reciprocity, so that means I need even more light in order for any information to appear at all. So I thought about trying daytime. Snow had returned, and for better or worse I persisted, closing the aperture of the lens all the way down to limit the massive amount of light flooding into the camera. Whoa. What's crazy is I actually got the color blue out of this. And here's one without the green 61. To get a more intense effect, I returned to Durand Eastman Park, where there were still a lot of green pine trees. I love Redscale film in winter. It's just a really dramatic effect, but there is a lack of green, so with this particular technique, I wanted an environment that could really accentuate that color. These negatives are absolutely cooked with exposure, and it took some work bringing detail back in the highlights, but I love how the green 61 exposure utterly saturates only the shadows of the scene, while everything else shifts to luminous grays. After that day, I returned to nighttime, even though it was so difficult, but then I thought, what if I blast the image with a strong burst of light, like from a camera flash? So the order of operations would go like this. Start a long exposure without the green 61, then cover the camera with the rain bag, reach under the bag and attach the green 61, ready the handheld flash, remove the bag, and flash 2 to 3 times at full power in areas of the scene that appear dark. Now, at the time I hadn't seen these scans yet, but I had a feeling that the green 61 would still block too much light, so I decided to reverse the order of operations. Starting with a super long green 61 exposure to bake in as much green as possible, then covering the camera, taking off the green 61 and quickly doing 2 to 3 flashes before closing the shutter. thanks for watching. I hope you found the process interesting in this video. There's still a lot of untapped potential, but I'll save that for another time. Have a good one and have a happy new year. I'll see you next time. Peace.